Before she became the beloved Princess of Wales, Diana Frances Spencer was simply a shy little girl growing up in the quiet English countryside. Born on July 1, 1961, in Park House, located near the Sandringham estate in Norfolk, Diana came from British nobility. Her father, John Spencer, then Viscount Althorp, later became the 8th Earl Spencer, and her mother was Frances Shand Kidd. Diana was the fourth of 5 children, and although her family was wealthy and aristocratic, her early years were not always filled with happiness. Diana's childhood was marked by emotional challenges. When she was just 6 years old, her parents went through a painful and public divorce. It was a time of confusion and sadness for young Diana. The separation created a deep emotional impact on her, especially when her mother moved out of the family home. Diana and her siblings remained with their father at Park House, which, interestingly, was leased from the royal family. That meant Diana spent her childhood living just a stone's throw away from Queen Elizabeth II's Sandringham residence. This early proximity to royalty was a subtle foreshadowing of the future that awaited her. Despite her noble background, Diana did not excel academically. She attended Riddlesworth Hall, a boarding school for young girls, and later went to Westheath Girls' School in Kent. Her teachers often described her as quiet, warm-hearted, and more interested in music, dancing, and caring for others than in books or exams. In fact, Diana failed her O-level exams twice, a fact that never embarrassed her. She simply wasn't the scholarly type. But where she lacked in academic performance, she more than made up for in empathy and kindness. She was known among her classmates for being a good listener and someone who always showed concern for those who felt left out or were going through tough times. Diana's compassion wasn't just for her peers. Even as a young girl, she loved looking after children, animals, and people in need. These traits were clear long before she ever wore a crown. After leaving Westheath, she briefly attended a finishing school in Switzerland, but she didn't stay long. Diana was more interested in finding her place in the world than becoming a traditional lady of society. In her late teens, she returned to London and moved into a flat shared with friends. For the first time, she tasted independence. She worked various low-paying jobs, something uncommon for someone of her background. She worked as a nanny, a dance instructor for young children, and even as a kindergarten assistant. While many people saw these roles as simple or unimportant, Diana found joy in them. She loved being around children, and the work gave her purpose. Looking back, these early jobs were a perfect reflection of Diana's true personality, nurturing, grounded, and emotionally intelligent. While many young aristocrats of the time were focused on glamour, parties, and social climbing, Diana was humble and content with a quiet, meaningful life. Little did she know, her world was about to change forever. Because at just 16 years old, Diana was introduced to a man who would soon become one of the most important figures in her life, Prince Charles, the heir to the British throne. At the time, he was dating her older sister, Sarah. No one expected that the quiet, shy Diana would one day become his wife, and eventually, one of the most famous women in the world. But at this point in the story, she was still just a young woman trying to find her place, someone who had endured emotional challenges, learned to be independent, and held tightly onto her sense of compassion. Her life had not yet become a fairy tale. It was real, raw, and relatable. And in many ways, that's what made Diana so special. Before the tiaras and royal duties, before the paparazzi and public speeches, there was simply a kind-hearted girl from Norfolk, walking the path of life with grace and courage, even when no one was watching. Diana's life changed dramatically in the late 1970s when she first caught the attention of Prince Charles, the heir apparent to the British throne. The story begins somewhat quietly. Charles was actually dating Diana's older sister, Sarah Spencer. It was during these family gatherings and social events that Charles and Diana met. Diana was only a teenager at the time, shy and somewhat uncertain about her place in this grand world. But Charles was intrigued by her natural kindness, her gentle nature, and perhaps most of all, her genuine innocence. Over time, Charles and Diana began to spend more time together. Their relationship quickly grew from casual acquaintance to something more serious. In 1980, the British press started noticing the young Spencer girl accompanying the prince to events. The public was captivated by the contrast between Diana's youth and fresh spirit and Charles's royal upbringing and experience. In February 1981, the announcement of their engagement was made. The news captured the world's imagination. Diana, at just 19 years old, was about to become the future Princess of Wales. The world was fascinated by the idea of a young, ordinary girl marrying into the royal family. It was a modern fairy tale, a dream come true for many. The wedding itself was one of the most widely watched events in history. On July 29, 1981, millions of people around the globe tuned in to watch Diana marry Prince Charles at St. Paul's Cathedral in London. The ceremony was grand and full of tradition. Diana wore a stunning ivory silk gown, embroidered with lace and thousands of pearls. Her veil was almost 25 feet long. It was a day of joy, celebration, and hope. But beneath the dazzling lights and cheering crowds, Diana was nervous. She was marrying into a world filled with strict rules, endless public scrutiny, and high expectations. She was still very young and learning to navigate the complex life of royalty. At the time, she seemed to embody the perfect princess, gracious, elegant, and devoted. In the years that followed, Diana quickly became a beloved figure not only in Britain but around the world. Her warmth and empathy made her approachable, even though she was royalty. She was often seen smiling for the cameras, engaging with children, and participating in charitable events. People admired her for breaking some of the traditional royal barriers by showing genuine emotion and kindness. She and Charles had two sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, who became the center of her life. Diana was determined to give them a childhood as normal as possible, despite the royal spotlight. She took them to amusement parks, on family holidays, and made sure they experienced the joys of everyday life. The world watched Diana's rise as she became known as the People's Princess. She was not just a figurehead, she was actively involved in causes close to her heart, from supporting children's hospitals to raising awareness about homelessness. Her compassion and openness won the hearts of millions. Yet, behind the scenes, the fairy tale was more complicated. Life in the royal family was not always easy. Diana faced enormous pressure to fit into a rigid system that often felt cold and distant. She struggled with the intense media attention, which followed her everywhere. The glare of the public eye could be relentless and unforgiving. Despite these challenges, Diana continued to grow into her role. She used her platform to bring attention to issues that others were afraid to touch, like mental health and HIV/AIDS. Her courage and willingness to break taboos made her a trailblazer. Her story during these years is one of transformation, from a shy girl living in the English countryside to a global icon whose compassion and spirit transcended the boundaries of royalty. While the world saw Princess Diana as a radiant and gracious figure, the people's princess, her private life inside the royal family was far more complicated and difficult than most people knew. Behind the glittering public appearances and fairy tale weddings, Diana faced intense personal struggles that shaped her life in profound ways. From the very beginning of her marriage, Diana encountered immense pressure. The royal family lived by strict rules and traditions. Every action was scrutinized, every word analyzed. Diana, young and inexperienced, often felt isolated. The palace, with its grandeur and history, could feel cold and unwelcoming, especially for someone used to a simpler life. One of the biggest challenges Diana faced was her difficult relationship with Prince Charles. Although their marriage began with hope, it quickly became strained. Charles had a long-standing relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles, a fact that caused Diana deep pain. Over time, their marriage deteriorated, filled with distance, misunderstanding, and emotional hardship. Diana struggled with loneliness. Even surrounded by staff, security, and the public, she often felt alone. The pressures of being constantly watched by the media, who followed her every move, added to her stress. Paparazzi would camp outside her home, take photos without permission, and publish rumors. This invasive attention was relentless and exhausting. The mental toll on Diana was severe. She battled with depression and an eating disorder known as bulimia, a condition that affected her physical and emotional health. For years, she hid these struggles from the public, but they were real and painful. She later spoke openly about these issues, breaking taboos and helping others understand mental health challenges. Despite the difficulties, Diana was deeply committed to her two sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. She worked hard to give them a loving and as normal a childhood as possible. She took them to school, played with them, and tried to shield them from the pressures of royal life. Diana's devotion to her children was one of her greatest strengths, and it won her admiration from people worldwide. Her openness about her personal struggles also made her relatable. Diana didn't pretend to be perfect. She showed vulnerability and humanity, which resonated with millions. She spoke about feeling like an outsider in the royal family and admitted her fears and insecurities. This honesty was refreshing and courageous in a world where the monarchy was expected to maintain an image of perfection. Diana also faced challenges with other members of the royal family. The relationships were often tense, especially with Queen Elizabeth II and Charles's relatives. The royal household was a complex environment filled with tradition, expectations, and sometimes, jealousy. Diana had to navigate this difficult terrain while maintaining her public duties and personal dignity. Throughout this time, Diana also began to redefine what it meant to be a royal. She was not content with simply attending ceremonies and wearing crowns. She wanted to make a difference. She became involved in numerous charitable causes, focusing on issues that were often ignored or stigmatized by society. This included her groundbreaking work with AIDS patients and her campaign to ban landmines, which brought her international praise. Yet, as her public profile grew, so did the strain on her private life. The media frenzy intensified, and the pressures of her role became overwhelming. Eventually, Diana and Charles separated in 1992, and their divorce was finalized in 1996. This marked the end of their marriage but not the end of Diana's influence or her story. Behind the palace walls, Diana's life was a complex mix of joy and pain, love and loneliness, triumph and tragedy. Her struggles humanized her and made her one of the most beloved figures of her time. She showed the world that even in the most privileged positions, people face real challenges, and that courage comes not from perfection but from perseverance. After the challenges and heartbreak behind palace walls, Princess Diana emerged as much more than a royal figurehead. She became a global humanitarian icon whose compassion and courage touched millions of lives around the world. This transformation wasn't just about titles or appearances, it was about a deep desire to use her position to help those in need and to change the way people viewed some of society's most difficult issues. Diana's charitable work was wide-ranging and groundbreaking. One of the most notable areas where she made a huge impact was in raising awareness about HIV and AIDS during a time when misinformation and fear surrounded the disease. In the 1980s and early 1990s, many people believed that HIV could be spread through casual contact, leading to discrimination and stigma against those affected. Diana challenged these fears head-on. She famously shook hands with AIDS patients without wearing gloves, showing the world that compassion was more important than fear or prejudice. This simple but powerful gesture helped change public attitudes and brought attention to the humanity of people living with HIV. Beyond HIV/AIDS, Diana also championed the cause of landmine victims. She visited countries scarred by war, like Angola and Bosnia, where landmines had injured or killed countless innocent people, including children. She walked through minefields, drawing international media attention to the dangers and urging governments to ban these deadly weapons. Her efforts helped bring about the Ottawa Treaty in 1997, an international agreement to prohibit the use of anti-personnel mines. Through her fearless advocacy, Diana gave a voice to those who had suffered in silence for too long. Diana's dedication to charity extended to children's hospitals, homeless shelters, and organizations supporting people with disabilities and mental health issues. She spent countless hours visiting patients, listening to their stories, and offering comfort. Unlike many royals before her, Diana didn't maintain a distant or formal demeanor. She was warm, approachable, and deeply empathetic. This made her beloved by the public, who saw her as a princess with a heart as big as her fame. Her humanitarian work was also a form of personal healing. By focusing on others, Diana found purpose and strength amid her own struggles. She transformed pain into action, using her platform to make a real difference. Her public image shifted from fairy tale princess to courageous advocate. Diana's influence went beyond charity. She challenged the royal family to modernize and become more connected to ordinary people. She brought a sense of humanity and openness to a traditionally reserved institution. Her honesty about mental health, including her own battles with depression and eating disorders, broke taboos and encouraged others to seek help. Despite her global fame, Diana remained dedicated to her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. She wanted them to grow up with strong values of kindness and service. She made sure they experienced life outside palace walls, taking them on holidays and encouraging their friendships with children from all walks of life. Throughout the 1990s, Diana continued to use her celebrity for good, balancing her public role with private challenges. She navigated the media spotlight with grace and resilience, even as rumors and tabloid stories swirled around her personal life. Diana's ability to connect with people from all backgrounds made her one of the most photographed and followed women on earth, but it also made her a symbol of hope, courage, and love. Her legacy as the People's Princess remained strong because she was more than a figurehead. She was a voice for the voiceless and a champion for the marginalized. Diana showed the world that true royalty lies in compassion, bravery, and a willingness to stand up for what is right. Princess Diana's life was marked by both extraordinary love and profound tragedy. Despite all her efforts to bring light to the world, her story came to a heartbreaking and sudden end on August 31, 1997. That night, in Paris, Diana was involved in a fatal car crash while fleeing the paparazzi. The world was shocked and devastated by the news. Millions of people around the globe mourned the loss of a woman who had become much more than a princess. She was a symbol of hope, kindness, and courage. The tragic accident happened in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. Diana was with her companion, Dodi Fayed, and their driver, Henri Paul. The car was speeding when it crashed, and despite the efforts of emergency responders, Diana was severely injured and later died at the hospital. The world watched in disbelief as news unfolded. Vigils and memorials sprang up in cities worldwide. In London, tens of thousands of people gathered outside Kensington Palace and Buckingham Palace to leave flowers, candles, and heartfelt messages. The official funeral on September 6, 1997, was a historic event watched by millions. Held at Westminster Abbey, the service was attended by world leaders, celebrities, and countless members of the public. The image of Diana's two young sons, William and Harry, following their mother's coffin touched the hearts of millions. The funeral was not only a farewell but a testament to Diana's impact on the world. After her death, Diana's legacy grew even stronger. She transformed the monarchy by bringing it closer to the people, showing warmth and humanity in a way few royals had done before. Her charitable work set new standards for how the royal family could use its influence for good. The causes she championed, HIV, AIDS awareness, landmine eradication, mental health, continued to receive attention and support. Organizations she inspired or helped raise millions of dollars to help vulnerable people around the world. Her sons, William and Harry, carried forward her spirit by continuing charitable work and maintaining her values of empathy and service. Diana's story also sparked important conversations about the role of the media, privacy, and the pressures faced by public figures. The intense and sometimes invasive coverage she received during her life and after her death led to debates about journalistic ethics and the responsibility of the press. More than 2 decades after her passing, Diana remains a global icon. Her life continues to inspire books, films, documentaries, and countless tributes. People remember her not just as a princess but as a woman who used her voice to bring kindness and change to the world. In many ways, Diana showed us that being royal is not about titles or power, it's about compassion, courage, and making a difference. Her legacy lives on in the hearts of millions who continue to admire her strength, her humanity, and her unwavering dedication to others. Princess Diana's story is a reminder that even in the face of tremendous challenges and personal heartbreak, one person can change the world through love and kindness. She will always be remembered as the people's princess, a shining light whose warmth touched lives far beyond palace walls.